Oh wow, I'm getting a lot of bells out here, baby. Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book 91. Yes, it is your favorite relationship and dating coach, and today I am talking manhood. Yes, in 2024, are we still talking about manhood? Are we still talking about men and their manhood? Not what you think it is, okay? It's not what you think it is. Don't let your mind get out of the gutter, okay?
Come
But I'm
on.
not going to be doing it alone. I'm going to be doing it with a generous, fantastimo, an amazing young man. He goes by the name of Ira Jackson. He's a former professional footballer. I know him very well, by the way. Just my little claim to fame, guys. But he's a former professional footballer, and now is in the profession of coaching as well, football coaching. So, and is the author of What is a Man. He serves as a youth leader at Tab London Church, which I've been to. It's an amazing church, by the way. So if you are in London, check that Tap London, the amazing church. And he's guiding the next generation with his passion for mentorship and personal growth. As a young husband, Ira also brings a unique perspective on the challenges men face, okay, because we face a lot of challenges, all right, that are often unspoken. And with his latest book, he explains a lot more going into about manhood, the book He Wasn't Ready, What We Weren't Told about manhood. So I cannot wait to chop it up with this young man. He's an amazing young man. He's gifted, talented. You know, for us as black men, especially, you know, we all had a dream of being a footballer, and somebody actually made it. So we we appreciate you, Pastor. I say Pastor, but I appreciate you, gentlemen. I appreciate you, you know, as well. Call you the football apostle. You know what I'm saying? To planting your
Aye,
flags in
one
the
of them.
sports arena. You get me?
I
How you
try, I
doing,
try.
bro?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to be on with you today. Yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's been a few years since we last had one of these, and that was for my last book as
Chops.
well. So I'm glad. I'm glad that we get to chop it up, get to talk about manhood. Yeah, and I guess discuss the book as well.
Yeah, listen, it's amazing. I mean, I want to be able to talk about this kind of subject because I think it really is a good topic to talk about, especially in 2024, right? We're talking about manhood. We're talking
Mm,
about men being men, you know, and we're hearing ladies as well complain a lot nowadays, like men ain't men no more, men ain't men no more. I think it'll be a really great topic, especially coming from a Christian perspective as well, right? And of course, you've written about
yeah,
this
yeah.
in your wonderful book as well. So before we go any further, just give them a little taster of who Ira Jackson is. I know I gave a little bit of a breakdown, but just give a little bit
Yeah.
of a breakdown of who you are, because you know you're more than a footballer, you're more than just an author. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot
Facts.
that's to you as well.
So I am a 27-year-old husband. I'm a youth and young arts leader at Tab Church London. And I guess my living mantra is to help take people from where they are to where they want to get to. So I do that in many different arenas, many different spheres, whether that's in football, with football coaching and football management, whether that's in life with, mentoring, advice, and guidance, or whether that's spiritually, with being I guess, pastoral type figure in my church for the youth and young adults as well. So it's all about helping people to progress. That's my kind of my mission. I guess that's my mission on this earth is to help people get from where they are to where they want to get to, whether that's in their relationship with God, whether that's in their, manhood, whether that's in their career. God has gifted me with the ability to support people, to help people, to coach people, but also the ability to help people strategize and kind of find those missing links from where they are to where they want to get to, whether that's even emotionally as well, which I talk about in this book, which was a journey. But yeah, that's me, man. And
I
yeah,
love that.
I guess shout out to my wife as well, Amira Jackson, who is currently
Come on.
carrying our little man who's due in December. So yeah, we're excited to be a soon to be father as well.
I love that. I love that as well because I think, like I said, you're a multifaceted individual, right? And like
Mm,
I always say, I think the unique perspective that I love when I love speaking to you is that, like I said, you made it the dream that most of us wanted to be, right? We wanted to be professional footballers. We wanted to, you know, we always
yeah,
talked about how we'll make it out the hood and we'll definitely be that one,
yeah,
you know. Some of us got knee injuries, so we couldn't actually pursue that dream. Do you know what I'm saying to you? But you
yeah.
actually made it as well. So, I mean, talk to us a little bit about, because obviously being a professional footballer, talk us a little bit about that journey because again, you're a Christian. You're also in professional. You are also in professional football as well, which you've now
Yeah.
obviously now gone into coaching. So, tell us a little bit about that journey into football before we talk about more about manhood.
So it was a long journey. Up until I retired, I was in football since the age of 4. So that's like 23 years of investment. And as most people know, and if you don't know, I guess you'll find out today. Most people, if they don't make it by 17, 18, it's kind of like you ain't going to make it. And so when I was, 16, I was on trial at lots of Premier League clubs, and believed that, this was going to be my big break. Did well at quite a few of them and not so well at some other ones, but never got signed. Then when I turned 17, and my cousin died, I went and played with Burton Albion, which they were playing in League Two at the time. So I was playing professional under 18s football. But that only lasted for 6 months because during the second year, they wanted me to kind of start A levels again or jump onto a BTEC program. So it was kind of like another slack from going to play professional football. Um, and then, yeah, throughout the years, there was injuries. Throughout the years, there was, managers not giving me my fair shake. But yeah, I continued to press towards, this goal, this target of, becoming a professional footballer. And I believed when a lot of people didn't, when the statistics were against me, 19, 20, 21 comes, 22 comes, you still ain't made it yet. And then I said to myself, and I said to God, look, this year has to be the year, because after this, um, it becomes even more hard because you're no longer considered young past like 22, 23. Now it's a lot worse. Like if you're 21, you're not a young player anymore. But I was fortunate enough that it was 23. And I said to God, look, I'm giving you this year. Um, giving it to you. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And I turned down some moves to higher clubs. That would have, potentially, if that got promoted, got me into League Two and stuff. But yeah, and I stayed at the club that I was at. And through that, I ended up having the best season I've ever had in football. And COVID hit 3/4 of the way through the season. And in a time where I should never, ever have got a move because everybody's losing opportunities, everybody's losing jobs, everybody's being furloughed. God so had it that that's the year that I got a professional contract. And I ended up moving from Kent, South England, Southeast England, all the way up to Northeast England to play for Grimsby. And yeah, the rest is history. Scored on my debut, scored on my full debut, and I guess lived the dream. And realized the dream wasn't really the dream in the end. The dream was just a target I needed to reach in order to, I guess, gain some sort of influence and gain some sort of um, I want to say be in certain rooms. I guess the title of being a professional footballer gets you into rooms that your giftings in terms of speaking gifts or whatever don't get you into. And so, by virtue of that, there's a level of influence that has been bestowed upon me, that I appreciate because it shows me and has showed me my greater purpose, which is to help people, to support people, develop people, and to help people get closer to God. And so, yeah, I wanted to use that in the right way. And so now I'm in full-time ministry. So I guess I'm doing all right.
No, I love that as well. And I think my natural progression of thought process is developing manhood within sports, right? Because obviously many of us played football at grassroots
Yeah,
level, okay? Or you might have played football in the cages, whatever it was in the ends or whatever you
come on.
did, right? But you were obviously professional. So tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about manhood within professional football because I feel like there is probably a range of ways that people maybe showed manhood. I know, I never played
yeah,
professional,
yeah,
but obviously with the boys and that, we have our ways of doing things. So,
yeah.
what role did manhood play in the sphere of sports and professional football for you?
Well, I guess it's hard because for me, I'm a Christian and I wholeheartedly followed Christian beliefs. And so within those principles, there comes this tug of war between your masculinity and what your masculinity is supposed to be according to your sport. And obviously, being emotional already, you're being emasculated, whether you play sports or not. But then if you play sports, it's even worse. The bravado element of, I am man, hear me roar, this kind of alpha mentality, which is really beta, but we can talk about that in a different context. That has to be there. You have to be brash, you have to be arrogant, you got to be this, you can't be measured, you can't watch what you say. And then there's also this element of believing that you're a law unto yourself. And I think football specifically creates this environment and this ecosystem where men believe that they can do what they want because it pumps up their abilities more than their character. And so for me as a footballer, as a believer mainly, that kind of cut across the grain with everybody else that I was around. And for some, they didn't really, rock with me kind of, but for others, they kind of respected it because they were like, all right, we're talking about hiring prostitutes and all this sort of stuff. And this guy's like, well, nah, I'm a virgin. I'm not doing that. I don't believe in that, etc., etc. And at first, they'll take a pot, they'll take the mick, but after a while, they respect it because I stood on my principles and I never backed down from that. I said that there's a certain way that I want to live. There's a certain way that I believe will glorify God. And I never stopped behaving that way. And I think one of the issues that can come, especially for believers in sport, is that you can say what you like, but if you don't move like that on a normal, then it's peak. They won't respect you because the next time they'll say the same thing to you. Whereas with me, some of them would stop having those conversations around me because they knew that that wasn't my belief system and they didn't want to offend me. And I think that was a good thing about, being as strong in my faith, because that allowed me to navigate the toxicity of the manhood that sport allowed me to have. We see it all the time, footballers raping women, footballers abusing women. And most people, if you look on social media, the first thing they're saying is, oh yeah, he did what he did, but when's he going to come back and score for my team? When you begin to put that into the psychology of a man that already doesn't have Christ, a man that already believes that, he can do whatever he wants, you create monsters. And this is what's happening in the professional game, not just in football, but in most sports, is that, because you're an entertainer, because you're a high profile athlete, there's an expectation that, you should be allowed to continue doing whatever it is you do. One, because people believe that your identity is wrapped in what you do, but two, because if you're not doing it, how do we get entertained? And for me, I would never put my principles below entertainment. Like, I can't do that. That's not the way I move. So yeah, man, that's how I've managed to navigate it. It's been tough, but I respect from so many people of different faiths, different backgrounds, different beliefs. People that are out there getting girls pregnant, people out there married, hiring prostitutes and that, and they'll still respect me because they know this guy don't play when it comes to his manhood. He don't play when it comes to his attitude and his behavior.
Man, it's intense, but I know exactly what you mean. Like in that environment where you are a god unto yourself and a law unto yourself, there is no restraints, and so people do what people will do. When they're in Egypt, they do what Egyptians do, and so there's that level of freedom because you have power as well to do whatever you want to do. So then, obviously, you've obviously got that different mindset, right? Which means you're on a different track. But how did you develop that mindset? Where does that manhood mindset come from? Did it come from somewhere where you taught it? Was it something that you developed over time? Like, how did you get to that mindset of having that framework for manhood for you personally, that you could stand up so strongly in the face of being in the sports and not being easily influenced to go into what their version of manhood is?
Well, I guess there's two things. One, the primary thing and the most important thing will always be my faith, is that my faith has guided me and helped me to navigate, not even what manhood is, but who is Ira? That's what my faith has helped me to navigate. My relationship with God has helped me to become who I am and continue on that process of becoming. But then the other element is getting things wrong. And I say getting things wrong, not as if you should, but sometimes there's mistakes that you're allowed to make in safe and controlled environments so that you're able to reflect on them in the future and go, okay, well, although that didn't have long lasting negative impacts, what if it did? What would the implications be on me? What would the implications be on my family? How do I represent, the people that I say that I love with the way that I'm behaving? But most importantly, how do I represent God if that's the way that I'm going to behave? And again, God allowed to make little mistakes in little spaces that when I was obscure, so that when I got into bigger spaces, I wasn't making those mistakes. Yeah, because when you got your phone blowing up after every single game, if you do something stupid, you're no longer in the shadows. You're no longer in the sheep field like David was. You're the king of the palace in that sort of sense. Not that I was ever the king of football, but more so from the perspective of you're known, and now everything that you do is more scrutinized. And I think God allows us to be trained in obscurity so that when we do get to a place of trust with Him, when we do get to a place of influence, He knows that those same mistakes that we made at 15, 16, we're not going to make them anymore. Even if we're not 28, 29, we could be 19. But because we've matured, it allows us to step into those new spaces with a new perspective and new convictions. And I think that's the thing. It's going from understanding that they are principles and understanding that they're the right thing to do, from going from that to going to this is now a conviction that I have personally. When it's a personal conviction, it's not shaken. Whatever your teammates say, whatever your boss says, you're not shaken, because it's a personal conviction. And people nowadays have their own personal convictions of whatever they want to do, and people can't shake them from it. And I think that the one that saves all of us, the one that helps all of us, the one that benefits all of us, is actually the one that helps everybody, and that's the Word of God. But yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? You said some really key things that got my brain kind of thinking, in the sense of, first of all, who is Ira, like you said, and knowing oneself as well, your faith as well. And the scripture that came to mind was, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, as well. So that scripture in 1 Corinthians, I think 13, where it talks about this, and it's interesting because obviously when we are talking about being in a space of manhood, and then being in a space where manhood is defined in a way of debauchery and a certain way, and having to, like you said about being in a place of obscurity, which is really interesting, because I was just telling my audience, I keep it all the way real. I was like, I was in Egypt not long ago, a few years ago. So not a few years ago,
Yeah.
this last year. You know what I'm saying to you? Yeah. I lost my way.
I hear that.
And I
Yeah.
lost my way, and I went on a mad thing. You know what I'm saying to you, for the last 3 or 4
Yeah.
years. Right, so I went like prodigal son. Said, "Give me my inheritance. I'm going into this. I'm going into the space, right?" And I did things that were not things that I would celebrate with Christ. You know what I'm saying to you? So then I you look at reasons why, and you look at the wounds that you're carrying, the emotional aspects where you've not done the healing and the work, right? Where it destroys the man, but it builds the boy. And so it's like, in those scenarios, you have to almost be renewed and come to a new perception of what manhood really is. So I love what you're kind of breaking down in that space as well. What would you say manhood actually is then, from your perspective? Because obviously you've written about this, and we're going to talk about this book as well. So from your perspective, what is manhood then?
I don't think there's a specific definition, but I guess I could say 3 words that link to manhood. I guess authenticity, accountability, and responsibility. They're kind of 3 words that I would say in essence manhood is. Authenticity, in the sense that we have a lot of people that are faking it. Even when it comes to the way that we feel, the way that we talk, the way that we act. I write a question in the book to the reader to ask them: could it be that you're not actually as strong as you think you are? Could it be that you're actually a follower when you're not, when you believe that you're a leader? Every man, when you speak to them, their ego tells you that they're a leader. But the reality is that we're all followers. Because I guarantee you, if tomorrow Cristiano Ronaldo turns around and says that a specific type of condom is the most effective condom, I guarantee you, within months, millions of men would have bought hundreds of them. Are you a leader or are you a follower? That's the reality. Authenticity is the ability to be authentic, the ability to be authentic with others, with God, but primarily with yourself. Do you know who you are? Like, if you're upset, if you're angry, can you be authentic enough to go, you know what, I'm vexed? Rather than, no, it's calm. It's obviously not, because on the inside of you is a raging inferno that whoever comes next to you and says the wrong thing is going to get banged out. So you're obviously not okay, right? And it's okay to not be okay. But the issue is that we've been trained and we've been told that being okay or not being okay is not acceptable. You can't be a man and not be okay. You're supposed to have everything together. Well, why? Who even brought that to be, right? These are the sorts of questions that you have to ask. So that's authenticity. I'd say accountability. Men without guidance, men without counsel, men without support systems that are effective. I said to one of my friends who was in madness, I said to him, look, your accountability was not accountability, it was fans. Because if I tell you what you're supposed to be doing, if you do something wrong and I don't tell you that you're wrong because I fear that you're not going to put me on your Insta anymore, we're not accountable. There's no accountability here whatsoever. This is, I will say what you need me to say so long as you can build my platform as well. And there's lots of false accountability that a lot of men have, because men will just be like, yeah, nah, bro, you did the right thing still. You did the right thing. Why? Because you're the richest one in the group. You're probably the one that's going to make it out in the group. You're the one that's the strongest in the group. So they're not going to tell you jack, because if they do, they fear the platform and the influence that you have, they will no longer have access to. So men without accountability will end up doing the dumbest things on earth. So you need accountability. A real man has accountability. A real man can go, Kojo, you know what? I'm moving mad right now. Just chat to me. Like, talk to me. I don't mind if you rip me apart with your ruthless honesty. I'm going crazy. I've done stupid stuff. Lays all out, bare before his friends, before his brothers, before his mentors, and goes, look, I need help. Otherwise, I'm going to do something more stupid. That's accountability. And they say that a man without mentors is a man that you can't trust. They say that to women. If a man that you're about to marry doesn't have mentors, doesn't have men that can check him, do not trust him whatsoever. So a real man is accountable to other men who are more superior, who are not fans of his, who are not impressed by him, but see him as a person that, yes, may have potential, yes, may be gifted, yes, may be talented. But realistically, as a man, if not checked, you're one step away from doing the dumbest thing on earth. That's what a real man does. He gets accountability. And then the final one I'd say is responsibility. Are you responsible for yourself? Are you responsible for others? Do you protect people? Do you protect people's emotions? Do you protect people's image? If I said this to somebody before, one of my mentees, I said, if ever you get into contact with a woman, the worst thing that they should leave you with, or the least thing that they should leave you with, is God. That's the least thing. The least. If we get in contact, we're friends, we're flirting, situationship, whatever, they should always, the only thing to leave you with is, oh, that guy treated me like God would treat me. That guy treated me like Jesus would treat me. Because as men, we're responsible for the heart and safety of a woman. If you're not responsible as a man of your own stuff, you're not a man. And if you look at those three things, when you look at children don't know who they are, so they can't be authentic. Children don't want to be accountable because their genetic predisposition is sin, right? They don't know what's right or wrong yet. They're just like, let me try things out and let's see how things work. So they don't know what accountability is. They see accountability as oppression because they're not mature. And responsibility, they're in fear of being told off. So they're never going to take responsibility for stuff. They're going to be like, oh, mom, I didn't do it, because their response to responsibility is pain. So those three things would be my definition of manhood if I had to break it down on the spot like now.
Listen, that was a heavy breakdown. I can't even lie down. That was light work. I like that. You know what I'm saying too. But real spit. It was light work, but it was important to actually break that down, because you're right. I mean, the need for people around you that you can actually submit to, or at least somebody you can actually talk to and say that they're the ones that can talk sense into you, and that you're actually influenced by them. That you are able to be, how do I say? You're able to be taken in a different direction, or you're able to take some instruction, or be able to see things in a different light, because you're allowing someone to have that power in your life to be able to speak words into your life. So yeah, absolutely. I think that nails the spot on in terms of that manhood, and I think that's very important, because like I said, us as men, without that, we're unbridled, and can wreak a lot of havoc, and
Hmm.
lay a trail of destruction behind us, which in a lot of cases can be generational. So you're definitely on the mark with that as well. So talk to me about this book then, because obviously, what made you want to write this book? Because it's your second book, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
you're writing this particular book. What made you go into this aspect to write about manhood? What inspired you to start writing about manhood?
Yeah. So with the first book, I was writing about manhood from a spiritual perspective. And honestly, I actually didn't want to write this book. I took an 8 month break from writing it because for fear of what's to come. Um, I had imposter syndrome. I had, you know, um, doxophobia, the fear of man. I had all of them. I was like, yo, I don't really want to write this. I'm not even sure I should. But when I started to consider the subjects, consider the things that I needed to work through, it became therapy for me. And I thought, well, again, similar to the concept of the first book, if this is helping me and people look up to me, how much more will it help them? And so I started writing it in, I want to say, yeah, February 2022. And then I stopped writing it the whole of 2022, and a lot of 2023. I stopped writing it as well, and kind of picked it up in little bits and pieces. Took a break, obviously, and after I got married in 2023, and then it was kind of like the end of 2023, start of 24, that I was like, I wasn't like, God was kind of giving me the strong arm, like, yeah, finish this, and I'm like, well, why? Like, the first book didn't sell millions. It was a New York Times bestseller. I'm not Mike Todd, so I can't just release a book and everyone's gonna buy it. Like, what's the point? Like, it's been therapy for me. Should that not be enough? Um, but it wasn't enough because the message was me being a town crier. So this book is me being a town crier to all men to address what they haven't addressed. My last book wasn't very personal. This book is very personal. I talk about certain instances and situations in my life where I realized that I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't know, you know, how to respond, how to go about it. And yeah, when I think about the book now, I'm also think about how do I help my son to never be able to say that he wasn't ready for manhood, because not everybody is in a position where they have the durability, the self awareness, the emotional balance to be able to navigate not being ready in an effective way through their faith, through the different atmospheres and environments and spheres that they're in. I'm blessed and fortunate that I've been able to navigate my struggles in a way where no one would know I'm struggling. And that's only by the grace of God. But not everybody's going to have that. Not everybody is going to have the sense of emotional balance to be able to go, you know what, something's wrong here, um, and I don't know what it is. I need to go to God in prayer. I need to go and study. I need to go and research. Most people, and I write about this in my book as well, it doesn't end up that way. And so for me, this is, you know, addressing the unaddressed. Say, look, this is the stuff you were never told about. Let me help you. And if I have to be the guy that's told, you're very feminine, you're weak for telling people about your emotions and all of this sort of stuff, I don't mind that if it saves lives. One of my burdens of recent, even in prayer, has been for the man that's on the brink of suicide. Um, I've been there. And so if this book takes somebody off that edge and off that ledge, because I've been able to put words to what they're going through, that's the reason why this book is here. Again, I would love it if this book was a New York Times bestseller. Um, I'd love it. I really would. But the idea, the idea of writing it wasn't for that. The idea of writing it was, this helped me to address the addressed, to speak about the elephant in the room. And a lot of men are followers. So they need to see that it's okay for somebody else to do it before they do it. And if I need to be that person, I will be that person. So that's the reason why this book is here.
I definitely hear that. So for you then, like you said, this book is a bit more personal. Took a bit of time to write it. You found
Mm.
yourself in a space where it really did take you on your own little journey as well. Tell us about one of those journeys that it took you on, and one of the things that you were really having to kind of detail and kind of found yourself exposed to as you're writing this particular book.
So there's a few. I have a chapter in the book called Background Check. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but
Another good
it talks
background
about
check.
where you come from and what you come from. In society today, when we talk about background check, we talk about CRB checks on potential, you know, potentials. But one of the things that I addressed was that it's more important to actually do a background check on yourself, and it needs to be a deep background check, not just a shallow one. You know, when you go on social media to stalk your potential future Mrs. Coco, you know, you're not just looking at, oh, okay, let's look at the top three things on her feed. You're going in a deep dive. You're trying to find out who she likes. You're trying to find out, you know, what she likes. You're trying to find out where she comes from. But what social media doesn't show you is what she comes from. And so, as much as I can look at myself and I can go, okay, I come from a two-parent household. I've got four siblings. I met my brother, my older brother, not my oldest, when I was 14. That's when I first knew about him. Both my brothers aren't even my real brothers. They're my half brothers, although they are my real brothers. Shout out Owen Nathan. Um, Two sisters, you know, we grew up together, we lived together, but we don't have as good a relationship as my two brothers, which has only really been developed in the last 3 years. I can look at that sort of stuff, and that's where I come from. That's my background. My parents are both Jamaican. My grandparents are both Jamaican. They came over in the Windrush. My mum's side is the last of my grandparents to be alive, and he died 5 days before my wedding. Like, these are the stuff. This is where I come from, right? I come from a massive family. That's all great, but that doesn't really tell you much apart from my history. It doesn't tell you how I'm impacted by my history. So what you come from, the way I define it is how you've experienced what you've experienced, how you've experienced where you come from, and the traumas, life experiences that are attached to that. Most people don't want to talk about that. And as men, you might find that the reason why you're so money hungry is because you come from no money. And the reason why isn't just that, but it's the traumatic experiences that you had when you went to primary school. Everybody else is wearing Nikes and you're wearing George shoes. And the way that you got ridiculed. If you don't address that, you now being money hungry is the thing that's going to kill you. And you don't even know why you're money hungry. You think you're just trying to get goals. You just think you're trying to achieve things. But the reason why you want it so bad is because the little boy that's inside of you hasn't addressed the fact that he isn't as cool as the other kids in his class and he got bullied. That's what hasn't been addressed. And when you go for a background check, the most important background check I had to do was, why do I behave the way I behave? Why is it I'm so obsessed with reaching goals? And the reason why I'm obsessed with reaching goals is because the family that I came from, my dad was results orientated. Right? He wanted, the only ones I'm getting, the only I'm proud of you I'm getting is if I've achieved something. So I spend the rest of my life achieving things. I've smacked out some of the hardest things ever. And that drive, that resilience hasn't just come from this innate desire to be successful. No, it's come from the fact that the only way you're getting a world done is if you do something. You existing means nothing until you do something. And I think most men are in that situation where a hunger for affirmation, I call it an affirmation addiction, right? You're so addicted to affirmation that it actually drives you to be one of the most successful people in the world, but it also kills you at the same time. So as much as it's great, it's also deadly. And so background check is probably one of the deepest chapters that you'll read in the book, because talk through that, how my relationship with my dad is so intriguing, because I know him as 5 different things and one of them isn't dad. Like, that's crazy. Like, I know him as my agent, I know him as my coach, I know him as my scout, I know him as my football manager, I know him as a representative, you know, my negotiator, but dad wasn't one of them, because I couldn't differentiate between who's talking to me. Who is it? Like, which one of you is talking to me? When you come and watch my football match and we get in the car, who is it that's talking to me? And that impacted me because that didn't allow me to just be me. That made me drive, that made me push, that made me want to be successful and more successful than anybody else I'd ever seen. It made me want to do this and that, etc., etc. And sometimes that can be deadly. And I'm still living through some of the consequences of that now because I don't know when to stop. I don't. And my wife is having to train me in how to stop. Like, babe, you're doing too much. Do you get what I mean? And even her being in my life has taught me that, look, you don't need to impress me. Like, she wasn't, when we first met, she didn't even know that I was serious about playing football. She was just one of the guys, like her friends that just played football. So she wasn't impressed. She got to know me for who I was. And so that's what was amazing for me, because it helped me to be who I am today. She helped me to be just Ira and go on that journey of self-discovery. And so now my heart is in a different place because I can actually live life from a place of just being, rather than, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to achieve. And so, yeah, that one is probably the deepest for me, but it took me to my childhood, and it took me to not just childhood, but it took me through a long span of maybe 15, maybe 20 years where I had unanswered questions. And it was that background check that helped me to answer those questions. And now I have to check myself before I go and do something. Even releasing this book, I was like, am I doing this because I want to achieve another target? Or, and so this is one of the reasons why I didn't want to release it, because I was kind of like, is this just me being me? Or am I supposed to do this? And so the reason why this wasn't released in 2023 is because of that very fact. And so my hope and my desire is that men who read this book will be able to address their own things and address the little boy inside that needs help, like severe help. And yeah, that we'll all be able to understand that, look, most of us weren't prepared for this. We weren't ready for the implications of any of this. We were not prepared. And I have a statement. One of my mantras in terms of like life, and especially manhood, is that expectation is shaped by education. And so men, in some of the worst ways, men are expected to be something they've never been educated for. And if I break it down, just basically, any woman in the world, right? As long as your mum's been around, like, you have been trained how to be a mother because you were given dollies. You've been trained how to cook because you probably had a kitchen set. You've been trained how to clean. You've been trained how to, and although traditionally they are women-related tasks, women-related things that are going to be expected of you in the future, right? Men, how many things are we trained, or are we just told? One day you need to get a good job so you can provide for your family. Have I ever been trained as to Can you hear me?
I hear you now. Go for it.
Yeah, it's an issue, and it's an issue that needs to be dealt with. Is that men are told, men are not taught. And so that's the issue. We are not ever trained to be, oh yeah, you can be trained to go gym, but in the grand scheme of things, how effective is that in running a household, the fact that you can go gym? Yeah, we might get taught to fix a car. Great. But unless you want to be a mechanic, how effective is that in providing for your house, apart from the fact that you have the skill? But the things that really matter in providing for a family, in supporting a family, in emotionally supporting a wife who's going through health challenges or going through pregnancy, we're not taught to do any of that. It's just go to work, don't be a part of any of that. And then once it comes, spend a little bit of time with it,
and then move on. We weren't trained.
Listen, you've not told no lies. You know what I mean? I won't lie to you. I think you've hit something on the head. That especially within the Western society culture as well, we don't get trained to become husbands or fathers. We often have to learn through watching what the father does. And I don't know if that's necessarily I guess poor fathership, right, leads to poor sonship, right? Because as Jesus said, I only do what I saw the Father do. So I guess for men, our training is through our observations. But if the person who's in place is not training well, as in their role model behavior is not correct, then we are going to follow suit, because Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. So you know what I'm saying to you. So again, for us as men, you're right. Like I guess our training is through observation. But if the person in front of me has got it wrong, more than likely I'm going to get it wrong too. You know what I mean? And I mean that in a broader general suspect than anything.
But also, you know what's funny with that is that, in a sense, yes, but also in seeing somebody do it wrong, you're trained how not to do it, but you still don't know how to do it. Because let's say, for example, radical example, right? And I'm going to apologize in advance for anybody whose parents or mum has been subject of domestic abuse. But if you see your dad beat your mum, right? You know how not to treat your wife.
That's true.
But you still don't know how to treat her unless you get trained. Because you'll think, okay, well, I don't beat her, but I can cheat on her. Well, they're both wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I know not to do that, but I still don't know what to do. And so this is why there's a statistic that says that I think it's over 80% of young boys who don't have fathers in a Birmingham prison, over 80% of them were men who have fathers, present and active in the household. It's not a secret. These things are not, it's not rocket science. And it's, I guess it's one of those things where men feel fearful to say that this is one of the reasons why they are the way they are, because then it appears as though we're not man enough. And that somebody else is responsible for us not being the man that we're supposed to be. But they are. Do you get what I mean? And I have a statement that says the conception of a thing is not your fault, but the continuation is. So you aren't the reason why you're alive today, but you'll be the reason why you stay alive, obviously with the help of God. But if you eat a poor diet, if you go and headbutt a brick wall, look, you probably won't survive. But the fact that you're here is as a result of your parents doing what they did, birds and bees, etc., etc. But also the fact that a lot of the behaviors that you portray are there are because of somebody conceiving them within you. Whether that's what you saw, whether that's what you heard, whether that's what was validated by society, whether that was what laws were passed or what unwritten rules were, you've learned it from somewhere. Now, you continuing that is your fault. If you continue that for years to come, as you grow up, as you see that negative reinforcement there, as you see that it has a negative impact on people, and you still keep doing that, that is your fault. But the seed isn't yours. And sometimes you have to learn to forgive the person who planted the seed before you uproot it. And when you mature and you grow as a man, you start to feel sorry for and almost understand the people who didn't have a good impact on you, because they can only lead, they can only support from their place of trauma. And if the trauma is unaddressed, it's going to be a bad leading and it's going to be a bad training.
Listen, you're on point. I can't even lie to you, man. You're on point. As men, we're not trained, we're not taught, and we're left our own devices to try and fill in the gaps as well. So you've spoken a good word. Where can we find this glorious book? Because obviously you've taken the time to write it. You're spitting out the gems now. Where can people? How do we get access to this book? You know what I'm saying to you.
So the book is going to be available on Amazon on Friday, the 1st of November. That's when it's out.
Okay.
I am currently offering 100 signed copies beforehand. And all you got to do is DM me on Instagram or on Twitter. Sign me up. All you got to say is sign me up. I'll give you a form to fill out. You'll get your own signed copy of the book, and God willing, it will get to you for the date of the release, so that you can be one of the first. All I ask is that you review it, tell me how you found it, put it on Amazon. Let's make sure as many men in this world can hear about this book, can learn from it, and can ultimately be transformed. That's what it's about. My aim and my goal for this book is that men's lives will be transformed, that we'll have more men that go to therapy, we'll have more men that go to reconcile with their baby mothers, we'll have more young men who are better prepared to be men, and that will have men that are able to resonate with authenticity, responsibility, and accountability. I know if in the process we can make it a New York Times bestseller, then that'd be great too. But look, it's all about impact at this point.
Listen, definitely, and you guys should reach out to him, DM him at Ira Jackson Jr. His name actually is on the screen. So if you just follow that on Instagram as well, DM him as well. Okay, all right, and you can get a free copy as well. First 100 people. So make sure you're a part of those 100. Which the number 100 is a nice number. We have a 100 Club as well, which we do every month. We have a little conversation thing offline, so they even request to say, am I going to get you on there? So hopefully you can set up to 12 to 2 a.m. in the morning. We can get you on there. Yeah, Thursday night, Friday night. We can get you on there. Friday morning, sorry, yes. Friday morning, not even Friday night. Friday morning.
Okay.
Maybe we can get you. He said he scratched his neck. Yeah. We'll see what we can do. You know what I mean? So, we'll try to get you in to get me. But, no, man, it's been a really great conversation, Ira, as well, because I think, again, like I said, it's important to have these conversations about manhood as well. It's got me thinking as well about, what content can I do again to really help the men as well, because we have a lot of content for the ladies. At least the ladies seem to be gravitated towards it, but we do need some really good content for men as well, just to be able to help them be practical and to make better choices as well, because we see it all on reality TV and all that stuff, how when men are not trained, the kind of destruction they leave behind. Okay, give us your final sentiments, because obviously before we go, what are your final sentiments or final words, just to kind of summarize manhood, your thoughts around it, what you've experienced. Just give us a little bit of a few words before we vacate.
Well, I'd say this book has helped change my life. So help it change a man's life. As a woman, I know that there's quite a few women that are in this chat and watching. You can get the book as well. There's universal principles and practical applications that will help you to grow. I talk about self-care. I talk about emotional health / emotional intelligence. I talk about, this concept of fitting in. I talk about asking men, were they born to fail, or were we born to fail? So there's a lot of stuff, even the background check. Ladies, you can do that as well. So I'd advise you, get one for a brother, get one for a friend, boyfriend, husband, whatever you want to call it. And men, get one for yourself and get one for someone else as well. They're going to be on Amazon, on Amazon platforms. It's going to be interesting to see how men take to this book. I know that if it was a woman's book, the women would lap it up, because it speaks to the things that you ladies are more inclined to receive. But this is what we need to hear as men. It's what I needed to hear, and I believe it will impact for other men as well. So follow us up on Instagram. I've got a podcast as well called the All Facts No Cap Pod. Where we talk about truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And just follow on all social media platforms.
Master, Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. I appreciate you. It's been a blessing to have you on here as well. And audience, I thank you for coming through and joining us as well. And we just pray that, listen, ladies, go and get a copy for your sons, for your cousins, uncles, baby daddies, daddy, whatever it is, okay?
Yeah.
Go and grab one for them, you know what I'm saying to you? Because as men, we need the instructions, we need the tutorials, we need the training as well. So don't be afraid of that. And the men who are watching replay, I know sometimes the men, we're a bit more quieter, but don't be afraid to reach out, grab a copy as well for yourself. This is good instruction, good teaching, and this will set you straight as well, right? So we appreciate you guys, honestly. Thank you much, audience. We'll see you again very, very soon. We'll be back tomorrow night for another live as well on some relationship content, Kingdom Marriage series. So make sure you join us for that as well. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, people. Make sure you stay blessed, stay like, share, subscribe, and click on that bell button. And don't forget to grab the books from Ira Jackson as well. First 100 people. So DM him on Insta or on Twitter, Ira Jackson Jr. All right, we'll see you again very, very soon. Much love, much appreciation.